Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of Talking TV with my mum, the weekly Geek-Dom Roundup review show of all things geeky television. I hope that you're all well. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming back if you've been here before, and thank you if it's your first time. Welcome. Join us. Come and join the Geekdom. This week we're going to be talking about a few less things because there were lots of things off. So it's going to be The Walking Dead, Star Trek Discovery, and the Orville. As we'd mentioned in the previous podcast, the fact that all the other shows are on a hiatus at the moment due to various things going on in the States. So it's going to be a little bit shorter compared to last week's bumper episode, even though the length doesn't seem to have deterred people because it's been getting quite a few good number of views. So that's cool. We still aren't getting a lot of engagement from you guys, so those of you that are listening to this podcast, please go down below into the comments, leave us your feedback, tell us, are you enjoying the long form content? Do you prefer it sort of short and to the point? And also, as we mentioned in last week's episode, if there are other shows of this type, this sort of superhero, supernatural sort of TV programs that we're not covering, give us some suggestions of things that you might like us to talk about. Obviously, provided it's within the remit of things that we watch anyway, and we will see about looking to incorporate them into the podcast. Don't forget to like this and also subscribe if you haven't done already. Like I said, comment and also check out the description box for other ways that you can help support the channel. And without further ado, we'll get into this. So I will welcome my co-host. So hello there, Mum. Are you there?
Yeah, hello, Dom.
How are you?
You have to excuse me this week. Yeah, I'm not too good. Have to excuse me. Last week, obviously, I had a bad chest infection, and now, because of it, my voice is disappearing a little bit. So I do apologise to the listeners if my voice sounds a bit strange, but hopefully I won't cough today.
Yes, this is one thing after another, isn't it? You had the coughing side of it last week, and now this week you've got the sort of croaky voice and losing voice and things like that. But here we go. See, viewers / listeners, committed to doing this for you guys, even when she's ill. Still got her on.
Miss it for the world.
So how are you feeling after last week? Did you enjoy last week's?
Yes. Listening back to it, it was good. Yeah. It's always good to listen back to it because it's really weird because we talk every week, and then it feels like I haven't really listened to what we're talking about because we do it this way. So to listen back to it is like, oh yeah, I feel like we've had our review as if we were on the phone just without doing it on a podcast. So to me, it's like a proper catch up then.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because although obviously we're sat here just conversing normally, this isn't scripted or anything. We are just talking, but I know what you mean. I mean, I found the same when I've gone back and listened to it. I'm sort of like, oh yeah, we talked about that, or we went down that path or whatever, because you kind of forget it because you're doing it, for the content. You're doing it for the audience and trying to sort of make it a certain way so that it's listenable to other people. Yeah. You're not really stopping and thinking about that personal aspect of when it was just a conversation between you and I. So listening back to it is quite interesting.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. But it's going well. So hopefully we'll carry on in this vein, and hopefully we'll not have as many technical issues this week. But you know what it's like. We probably will.
Disclaimer.
So something I was going to say to you, and I can't remember what it was quickly. It's gone out of my head. Oh yeah. Just quickly. So this is not something that we're talking about in the episode reviewing or anything. It was just a personal sort of me to you thing, but it's also a thing for the viewers in case they haven't discovered it yet. I started watching a program last night it's all on Netflix at the moment. It's called The Umbrella Academy. I think I may have mentioned it to you sort of briefly a little while ago. I would highly recommend you check it out if you haven't done already, because it's very, very good. I watched the first 3 episodes last night, and it's just, there's something about it. And I thought you personally, when I was watching it, Mum, I thought one of the things that you personally might really enjoy is the soundtrack, because there's some really good songs in this program. For example, I will say, I don't remember, and correct me if you think something else here, if you go, well, there was this one thing, but the last time you saw a film or a program that used an Adamant song in its soundtrack?
I don't know.
I can't personally think of anything at the moment. I mean, I'm sure probably things like Prince Charming, and things like the sort of Stand and Deliver maybe have come up in things over the years, but that's kind of it. So when you're watching something, then the song comes in during the scene, and you're like, wait a minute, I recognise this, and then you realise, oh, it's Adam and the Ants, and you're like, wow, that's pretty cool.
So it's called The Umbrella.
The Umbrella Academy.
Okay, I'll check that out.
So yeah, have a look, and then once you've watched a bit, we can sort of talk about it a little bit. Give me your thoughts on it, because I'm interested to see what you think as well. Because I know that you've started watching Doom Patrol, which obviously I haven't started watching yet.
Yeah.
There are some kind of similarities between the shows, just on a very basic level, not on the deep level, but on a very basic level. There are some similarities that, from what I know about Doom Patrol and obviously what I've seen of Umbrella Academy, I'm like, it's quite interesting. These two shows have gone on the air around the same time, but I will leave you to obviously make your own judgments.
Okay, I'll give me something to check out because I'm running out of programs this week.
So that was. I just wanted to throw that in there because, like I said, I just watched that last night, and it was very much one of those binge with, like we've had, but obviously with our Marvel shows and that, where you're like, I just want to watch the next one. I just want to watch the next one.
Yes.
It was like that I was, I wanted to just keep watching them, because it's just very compelling television. So yeah.
Cool.
Very,
I look forward to finding it then.
So anyway, with that being said, let's get started with our review. So the first thing on our agenda is this week's episode of The Walking Dead, which was called Bounty. So there's nothing to do with the chocolate bar or the kitchen roll. So give me your take. Give me your thoughts on Bounty.
Well, brilliant. Obviously it started. It's Jerry and the King. Yay! I haven't seen them for ages.
Yeah.
Quite amusing starter to that bit, with Jerry announcing, "We're up the pole. We're preggers. We got a preg on."
Yeah.
That was hilarious. And then obviously Tara and Jesus turned up, so I realised, it's a flashback.
Mm-hmm.
From before, obviously, after Jesus died.
Yes. It was nice to see him again, though.
Yeah, it was. It was interesting, that bit. Obviously, the way Tara was like sort of obviously rebelling against Michonne and handed a treaty or something over to Ezekiel the King.
Yeah. Which
no one had at the time, and obviously there was less. I think there was less towns on it at the time, because when he opened it eventually, and no one had signed it at the time. So basically, that's how it opened the show, wasn't it? And then it went back into normal time.
Yeah, you're right. I thought that too when he unrolled the document, and at the very bottom it had the section for signatures, which obviously hadn't been signed, and it was, what was it? It was Oceanside, Hilltop, and was it and the Kingdom? It wasn't Alexandria. Wasn't on there.
No, there was definitely one or two places on there.
Yeah, there was something missing, which was a bit like, oh, that's interesting. I was expecting there to be more place names on here than there actually was, because there was only 3. So that was a bit interesting, the fact that there wasn't all of the places we know about on there. But yeah, that was cool. And like you said, Jerry's expecting a baby, and it was good to see Jesus again. And yeah, this document would go on to prove to be kind of important as like a sort of subplot through the episode, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
So we had that. Yeah. So then we went to the present day, and we caught back up with how we ended it with the Whisperers stood outside the gates of Hilltop.
The crazy alpha woman outside Alexandria.
Mm-hmm.
No, is it Alexandria? No, it's Hilltop.
Hilltop, yeah.
Hilltop, yeah. I get them confused because they're backwards and forwards. Yeah. So she called on. I think she whistled or something. So even more of these crazy zombie whisperers appeared from the back.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, oh no. But she just kept saying, "We don't want any trouble. We just want our daughter." And Daryl was not having any of that.
Yeah.
He was not interested. No way. It's like it wasn't a straight swap in his eyes, though, was it? Because at the end of the day, he was worried about the girl because the way the mother, because what we said last week.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they killed one of his anyway, so. Oh yeah, of course we're just going to hand her over.
Yeah, it was it was interesting as well, because obviously initially we didn't realise that, we had speculated about what happened to the guys that went missing, and then they obviously had that in the conversation where they were like, basically you took two of our guys, are they still alive and all this, and she was unwilling to kind of tell them anything to begin with, and then eventually she sort of motioned, and even more came out, and they were bringing two other whisperers that were like bound, and then it was revealed, oh, this is Luke and Alden. Alden, that's his name, the guy that we keep forgetting every week.
Yeah, that's it now, Alden.
So they revealed that, we've got them. So basically, it's a simple trade. You give me back my daughter, I'll give you back your people. And then she was like, I really wanted to kill them. It was the way she said that. She was like, I really wanted to kill them, but I didn't. And then she was like really... It was all very matter of fact, wasn't it? It was like, she said about, obviously, she wasn't wearing her mask because she was doing that as a sign to show them that she didn't want any trouble. We're not here to have any trouble with you. We're here to, we come in peace. We just want to do this, and then we'll be on our way. We'll overlook the fact that you killed some of our people. What was interesting was the fact that she never referenced, like, eye for an eye, you killed some of ours, we killed one of yours, we're square. It was more like, all on her side, like, we'll overlook the fact that you killed some of our people. We'll overlook about the fact that you trespassed on our land and all of it. It was all on her side of things. It was not anything to do with, like, I suppose, because in her mind, everything that they've done to them has been justifiable.
Yeah,
it's like,
but they heard a baby crying, didn't they? And there was a woman with her group holding a baby, and he's going, "You bring a baby out here?" And she said, "Well, we're animals. We have babies."
Yes.
And he's like, "Why are you stood there?" And obviously the baby was crying, which then decided to, because the baby was crying, the real zombies were attracted to the sound, weren't they?
Yeah.
So basically the poor woman's panicking, thinking, what was I supposed to do? And one look from that alpha woman, she just took the baby from it was a little wrap thing she had around her. Like, almost like, yeah, you have to do that. So she just put the baby on the ground and walked away from it.
Yeah, because
it's like, the baby's an issue now, we can't have the baby. We'll just leave the baby on the ground for the bloody zombies to get.
I mean, it was that real...
thinking, what the hell?
It was that really cold sort of survival of the fittest kind of thing,
horrendous.
Wasn't it? It was like real survival of the fittest, of like, you cannot be attached, this baby is going to cause us trouble, so therefore you must dispose of the baby. So it's like, well, leave the baby there, the zombies will be attracted to the baby, and they won't come over to us. So it was like, wow, this is really heartless, this is really cold. And obviously, we still had... Connie was still hiding in the wheat field thing, and they sort of drew her attention to this, didn't they? That there was, something going on. So she looked through and she saw the baby on the ground, and she just decided, I'm going to do something about this. So she rushed out and grabbed the baby, and then ran back into and then that whole scene was so good. The way that the sound was all muffled, and like it was from her perspective of not being able to hear properly, and these things were just coming out at her, and she obviously, because she didn't get the sound cues that they were coming at her, it was just like they were there, and it was like, oh my god, that was so tense, that whole
That was
moment.
quite scary, that bit, wasn't it?
And obviously they're all watching this on the on the barricade, and she's just stood there completely nonplussed by it, just staring at them as if like nothing's going on, and all her people are just stood around her. And then obviously the next thing, you see them rushing around on the hilltop barricades, and then clearly something's going on. And then just as you think, oh no, somebody's going to get Connie, these zombies are going to get her, Daryl just comes out of nowhere, just like stabbing one of them in the head. And then all the rest of them come in, don't they?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That was so good. But in the meantime, there was the other bit that happened in the meantime, which was that Daryl basically sent the girl, what's her name? Enid, wasn't it?
Yeah, decided that because they had the two lads, they had to get her and send her back to her mother, because that was two people's lives on the line.
Yeah.
And she was part of their gang. So, but when Enid had gone to find the girl, Henry had took her.
So they were then going round Hilltop trying to find them.
Yeah. Obviously that delayed this. Obviously they were stood there for a long time, weren't they, waiting this. In the meantime, we had some light-hearted stuff going on while we were waiting for them to find the girl.
Yeah.
With Ezekiel and Jerry going on a crazy mission.
I found this little side story very odd. I was a bit like, I don't get why we're getting this story, because again, this story was kind of, This was in flashbacks as well, wasn't it? Or was this present? No, this was present day, wasn't it? With the trip to the cinema. No, it was just really weird. It was just kind of like, I was like, what is the point of this little side story?
There was a point, though. I know what the point was.
Yeah, I think that we kind of got a point like towards the end of it. But like at the time, I'm sat there watching it, going, yeah, this is a bit lighthearted and whimsical. But it just, given everything else that's going on at the moment, it just seemed quite out of place. Like, and especially like the way they were acting. Like, that whole bit was brilliant. The bit with the stereo.
Yeah, the mission mix.
Yes, and like they were all like singing along to it, and Jerry's like bobbing his head and dancing and all of this. Oh, so I love that character. I love him.
I think it's just that they wanted. I mean, obviously they've gone and got supplies. I think they've been to get supplies, haven't they, in that episode anyway? And then they had this other thing, the side mission they were going to do, which Carol wasn't supposed to know about. And they probably thought, while we're in town, there's a cinema, and basically they wanted the bulb for the cinema so they could have the cinema in the kingdom. Mm-hmm. And they knew there was one in the town they were going to get the supplies, so they thought, right, we're going to go in and get it.
Yeah.
And basically, they were just trying to be normal, to be fair. I mean, I know you said that there's no point to it at the end of the time. But I mean, like he said at the time, that with nothing going on at the moment, we've got nothing, they've got no big wars going on at that particular time where they were. Nothing they had to be on hand for. We just want to have something and try and have some normality. And hence why that's why they were going for it.
Well, yeah, I suppose from their perspective as well, they don't really know anything that's going on with the
well, they don't even know about Jesus yet, do they? So
no.
They know nothing about these ghost whisperers. They are totally oblivious to all of this. So they haven't been called to arms and to get involved in any big things at the moment. So to them, it's just like a normal day.
Yeah.
And we're out here now, and there's a cinema, and it's got a bulb that we require. So we're going to go get it. And obviously Carol was a bit reserved about it all. In the end, she told them they had to get it. Lots of zombies to kill along the way.
Well, it was funny because you had that whole bit with him referring to her as the Queen and stuff, and she was like, don't do that, I don't want you to do that. And then she was, like you said, she was kind of against it, this is fruitless. And then he did that bit where he was willing to kind of give up, but he said, I wanted to do it because I wanted to do something nice, and they were talking about how cinema can be a thing, like you think back into the world before the world was destroyed, and those memories of like, a parent taking their child to see a film and the memories that come about from it and all of this lot. And when she realised like how important it was to him and why he was trying to do something nice for the community, that's when she was like, doesn't the Queen have a say? Because he was willing to give up, wasn't he? And she was like, doesn't the Queen have a say? And it's like, oh, now you're the Queen, are you? And she was like, she was then, because she obviously loves him and she thinks, well, what he's trying to do is a nice thing. She then said, no, let's push forward and let's do this. Let's complete this mission, get what we came here for. And they also got a poster case to put the charter in that we saw in the flashback at the beginning.
He said, this will come in handy. He said, once it's all signed, he said, it'll look magnificent in this. So, I mean, that was good. The whole thing was quite light-hearted. But obviously, the point of it, like you said, the non-point of it, the point of it came as they walked away from it all, and we saw this weird sign.
Yes.
On whatever it was, like on a door or something, which could potentially be in the Whisperers, it could be something else. So obviously that was the relevance of that. Obviously we had the light-hearted bit, but obviously walking away and that weird sign that was painted on the thing I think that's what the point of that was.
That's what it made me wonder that, because when
I wrote it down, I drew it.
When it showed it, I was like, the relevance of this is this because, like we said, they're at the moment, they're quite, they don't know what's going on. They're not in the loop about all of this terrible stuff that's happening and these new enemies that have emerged. And so they're sort of, as you said, they're looking at, it's a period of quiet and it's a period of rebuilding and sort of trying to do forward-thinking things. There's no threats on the horizon, all of this kind of stuff. And then you see the sign and you're like, little do you know, not only do you not know what's currently going on at Hilltop, but you also don't know what maybe you've just done. That perhaps if that is a symbol of the Whisperers, you've just gone into their territory and you've taken stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, you get the impression as well from her, she's probably the type of person that's like, it wasn't stuff they were ever going to use. It's more the principle of the matter of like, but that was
we've marked it as territory, so you should go in it,
So that
Yeah,
belongs to
definitely.
us. It's like, well, were you ever going
Yeah,
to use the cinema? No, but that's not the point. The point is that it was in our on our land, and you
yeah.
trespassed on our land
So
without
yeah, so
invite.
that was
So,
very interesting. But
so I
also, we went
reckon.
then went back to Hilltop where they'd found Henry, and the girl decided she was going to go back, to her mother.
Because she
And
heard them talking, didn't she? She heard them having the conversation about the danger and about, like, she's not our people, they're our people, and all of this kind of stuff.
yeah,
And then she came
well, she
out.
she came out and she said something like mother, and she just turned around. You called me Alpha, and slapped her.
Oh, yes, yeah,
Oh,
but I mean,
cheers,
before
thanks
that.
for that.
Before that, though, obviously I meant she came out of the house when they were talking, and she, like you said, she
Give Henry
surrendered
a
herself. She gave
kiss.
Henry a kiss and decided, look, this is what's best. It's best for me to go back. It's best for everybody. And then, like you say, she went out, and you had that whole bit where, oh, that was tense. The moment when Daryl walked her down, and they opened the gates, and they came in to that
And
like
they haven't actually let
entrance
the other guys go at
area,
that point, have they?
and I was just thinking,
They're going to
were
kill
you
him, or they're going to let him go, or what's going
were
on?
you waiting for the twist? Were you waiting for them to maybe like kill them
He'll get
anyway?
close enough to the woman and then them kill those guys or them attack. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I
I
did.
really
I
didn't
didn't
think.
think it's going to be as straightforward as it was.
I
I don't think it's as straightforward as it was anyway. Because at the end of the
mm,
day, they know where they are now.
yeah,
They know, and she knows. They'll get some information out of her, won't they?
but it's the fact, like you said, her reaction after being like, I want my daughter, I want my daughter. She sees her daughter. She kind of, sort of, almost smiled at her as if like, I'm happy to have you back. And then she approaches her of like, oh, Mum, you came for me. And then, like you said, she slapped her around the face and she's like, you'll call me Alpha just like everybody else does. And it's like,
Yeah.
I might be your mother, but I'm Alpha. Don't refer to me as anything other than that. And it's like, wow, that was hardcore.
Yeah,
And
that's
they all
harsh.
obviously stood on watching this looking very uncomfortable, but also kind of powerless.
Yeah.
And then they all went off, didn't they?
Yeah, and then they found out that Henry'd gone as well, gone after her.
Mm. Yeah, he snuck out, didn't he? Because he couldn't deal with what they'd done, so he left a note, and they found obviously that girl. I don't know what her name is, but like that's that girl that we saw in that episode with Henry, the time when he first went there and he bonded with the group
One
of
with glasses.
teenagers. Yeah,
Yeah, she was one of the ones that like they took him to that, got him into trouble, really, basically.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what her name is,
But
but
she
yeah,
found
she
the
said
note,
no. She
didn't
had a,
she?
a note for them to give it to Daryl, and then he goes dog, grab dog, and then Connie came. Is it Connie?
Yeah,
Came up over to him and wrote down on a bit of paper that she wants to come with him,
yeah.
and he said no. He goes, I'm going with you.
Because she
Like,
didn't feel right
ooh.
about it either.
Well, she didn't feel right about it either, no, because obviously the way she didn't feel right about them either, the people.
Mm,
Basically, after what they did with that baby, she probably thought, no, these are bad people. I don't trust them.
yeah.
I'll do something about it. So yes.
And they gave the baby to that old couple
Oh
to look
yeah, the
after.
guy used to be a drinker, the one that he
Yeah.
had in prison for a while. Yeah, yes, that was quite sweet.
Mm. But yeah,
We
so
got
now
another baby now.
I know another baby. But yeah, so now Daryl and Connie are going to go out to hopefully find Henry, but this is all going to go horribly wrong now because
Yeah.
maybe maybe this was, as far as the Whisperers were concerned, maybe this was the end of it. It's like, okay, we've made our stance clear now. We've got back our property, so now they'll steer clear of us, we'll steer clear of them, and that'll be the end of it. But now, by them, because of Henry, like, being in love with the girl, with, what's her name, Lydia,
Yeah.
he's going to end up jeopardizing stuff, and then obviously Daryl's going to have to probably kill somebody, which is then going to then incite them, and then it's all just going to kick off again.
Well, we have to wait and see. Don't write the story before we watch it.
Yeah, but think about it. It's probably that's
Yeah, well,
what's
obviously
going to
something
happen,
bad's going
isn't
to
it?
happen. Obviously,
It's gonna
not.
it's gonna be
I don't
something
think.
along those lines.
I
I think
personally don't think
Henry's.
that Alpha just thinks that's it. The end of it. Fair.
Do you not?
No,
Okay.
but we'll see.
Hmm.
Let's wait and see.
But yeah, so I'm interested to see where it goes. And if that symbol thing in in and around the kingdom is indeed something to do with them, and where things go.
Interesting if it isn't as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Who
like
else is around?
And I want to know, right? I mean, what episode was that? That was episode 11. How many episodes do we have for this series? Do we know?
You said there wasn't many more.
Because did I
16,
originally
did you
it said
say?
16? Yeah.
That's 5 more.
So I
So
want to
not going to
know,
happen in 5 episodes.
when are they going to tell the story of the time in between? About like whatever happened between Michonne and Daryl and the other communities and things like that. Because we still haven't really seen that story play out yet either.
No. They've got to do it this season then, haven't they? Because otherwise it's pointless.
Yeah, because otherwise it'll just be like, well, if they come back to that, if
explain
they
the
don't do it
timeline.
in this season, then it's like, well, why, we've now got to wait like a whole nother season until you actually tell that story.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see what happens over the next 5 episodes.
They might just have one episode that is all about that.
Possibly, yeah.
And with a bit of like an ending or it'll go into the following week about something separate. Maybe.
But yeah, so there we go. So that's The Walking Dead. So yeah, it was, all in all, it was a good episode. I mean, I didn't find it quite as exciting and sort of everything as last week's. Because like I said, from my perspective, yeah, the end result of it led to something, but I just felt that whole side plot with the kingdom was almost like, it was just like, oh, well, we haven't done anything with these characters for a little while, so we'll just sort of, we'll just throw in this little side mission for them. And I was just a bit like, I could have done with that being chopped out and having more to do with the main story, to be honest.
Well,
but
it was relevant because it mentioned the treaty, like a flashback that it was still mentioned. And obviously when we saw him put it in the second time, it had more towns on it.
Yeah.
But it just still hadn't been signed. But they're hoping to have it signed at this fair thing that keep going on.
Yeah.
So they're leading up to this big fair, remember? Whatever this is, where they hope they're all going to be part together. They've all been working towards it, so we'll see.
Yeah, I was going to say that. It's like, when is this fair actually going to happen? Because it seems like it's been supposed to happen for ages now, and it's like, when is it actually going to happen?
Well, it will happen. You forget the timeline to us. Like obviously, when they said before, it's to us it seems like weeks and weeks. Sometimes it's just days for them, isn't it?
Indeed.
So, too impatient, my son.
Let us move on to our next episode. So, Star Trek Discovery.
Yes.
And I have a bit of news for you before we go into talking about the episode. So, last week when we were talking about Star Trek, we were on about not knowing its fate, not knowing whether this is it or anything like that. Well, we now know its fate because yesterday it was announced that this season has been doing so well. All the people out there that are all been negative about Star Trek and stuff, and this, that, and the other, clearly a lot of people are enjoying it, and a lot of people are watching it because CBS have renewed it for a 3rd season. So
Yay!
Stick that in your pipe and smoke it.
Brilliant! Yay! I'm happy. Cool.
So I was like, oh, that's cool, and it was cool that news came out just before we were recording, so we could sort of have that little bit of news in here to say it is going to be coming back. It has been renewed, so that's good news.
Yeah.
So this episode, it was called, I really enjoyed this episode. The Sound of Thunder is what it was called.
Yeah. So basically the episode was based around Saru, start to finish. So basically it started with him, he's wondering what his purpose is now as he has no fear.
Yeah.
Bit daydreamy. I got told off for sitting in Pike's chair when he's like sitting in the captain's chair and Pike came in and like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot who I am. But, something, they got a transmission.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, something to do with the Saru's homeworld. I can't remember how that all happened.
It was one of the red bursts.
Yeah, one of the red bursts was leading them towards his homeland.
Somewhere, and when they tracked it, the coordinates turned out to be his home planet. So it was one of these red bursts that's been cropping up throughout the series, and they were like, another one has just appeared, and then when they said it was, where it was, and then it dawned on him of like, that's, what's it called? What was the name of the planet? Is Camino? Something like that, anyway. Yeah.
Calamile.
Calamari.
Calamari. Look, it's probably chamomile,
Yeah.
as in the tea. You'll get the relevance in a minute, viewers, listeners.
So yes, it was going back to his home planet anyway. His home planet that he had said he was actually like never meant to return to after leaving there, and now because of
we
this
found
whole
out how he left as well, didn't we?
yeah, we did, yeah, because of this whole Red Angel, Red Bursts kind of storyline, it's led them conveniently back to his home planet. So yeah, so they went obviously after this signal, and yeah, it was the Kelpian homeworld, and then what happened?
Well, because he said he remembered about what they said about how did he ever get off the planet or something, and he said he'd sent a transmission had been sent for help, and he'd sent it, and Giorgio had answered the call and saved him. That's how he'd originally got off the planet, and they were being ruled by this people called the Balul or something like that. Baul. I didn't know how to write it. Very hostile, but no, they'd never really seen them. They knew that they sort of ran the planet, but no one actually, like he said, we've never seen them, but they just have the presence and how they rule it. Everyone's really frightened of them.
Yeah, that was interesting, wasn't it? It was like, the two species have lived together on this planet for as long as, they can remember, but nobody knows, nobody's seen them, nobody of Saru's generation or nobody, has ever actually, encountered one, because when it's time for them to be culled, they just get taken, and they don't interact with the battle. They just, the Kelpian just gets taken away, and that's it. There's no actual interaction between the two species. And that was how he got off the planet, because he took some of their technology and he repurposed it into a transmitter, and then obviously Giorgio picked up the signal, and then she came down to the planet. So he'd already been showing that he was clearly a bit of a rebel and a bit of a, operating outside of the traditions of their planet, because he'd been tinkering with this, presumably it would have been seen as forbidden technology, because it belonged to their rulers, their masters or whatever. So he already had that obviously in his nature, where he was a bit more willing to sort of take risks and do things outside of what they're meant to do.
Yeah, he decided he wanted to go to the planet, didn't he, to see what was going on, why this red burst had led them to the planet, and Pike was going, no, you're not allowed to go because that was part of the deal, that you'd never go back and all this, and he wasn't having any of it, was he, Saru? I thought he was going to punch him at one point.
Yeah, he got, I mean, this is the thing.
Head with him going, Rose, I'm going to my planet.
This ties in with the bit from the very start when he was getting his medical examination, and obviously the doctor said, if you look at your scans from here, and you look at them now, it appears that you're losing your fear, what's the word, your fear, your emotional trigger for fear, and that...
No holding back now, is there?
That came across in that, whereas before he would have been quite placid, he got very... aggro, didn't he? And got up in Pike's face and stuff. And like you said, I thought they were going to get into a fight or so. And then he ordered him off the bridge. And he was really annoyed with him. And he's just like, Mr. Saru, go leave the bridge. And he's like,
Burnham decided to go with him to investigate.
Oh, no, wait. No, I'm wrong. Sorry, that's not when he ordered him off the bridge. That was later on.
Later.
Yeah, they did get into an argument, but then they, I think, was it Burnham jumped in and said, look, Saru knows the planet, Saru is one of these people, Saru needs to be involved in this, so he reluctantly agreed, okay, well, if you go with him, then that's fine, sort of thing.
Yeah. It was the second time, because basically they went down to the planet, right, and they were dressed sort of like he would have been dressed if he'd come to the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And they were looking around, and he found his sister.
Yes, who's a priest.
He saw this woman, and he realised it was her. And that was quite sweet. And then that's why I told it was called chamomile, you see, because she greeted him with say, do humans from Earth drink tea?
Oh, that bit was so sweet.
It's chamomile.
Yes. Yeah, no, that bit was so sweet. The way that she first was looking at this strange creature, and then when at Burnham, and then when Saru introduced her, and she was touching her hands and everything, and she's different, but not so different, I think. And then she said, do humans from Earth drink tea? I was like, yeah, that was so funny, that bit. But yeah, that little reunion moment, and the fact that the sister is the priest, because he said about like, if we go to my village, there is a priest that we can talk to get information.
Yeah, and she
And
was
the
the
priest
priest.
turned out to be his sister. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was basically telling her everything about it, and she wasn't happy. He left her and everything, saying we worried about you and didn't know where you were.
Yeah.
But because their presence had been noted by those Baul or whatever it's called, you look at one point. She said you need to leave because obviously he had, he was putting them in danger basically, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Luckily, they had the power of the beam up. Otherwise, that could have been quite nasty. Because all the lasers turned on, didn't they? It's like lasers or something.
Well, yeah, because they had each one of these villages has one of these weird monoliths in it that sort of monitors things, and that's also what triggers when they take them away and things like that. And so yeah, it switched on and it had this light coming out of it, and then you could see lights lighting up in other places. So it was like, oh dear, this isn't good. And like you said, they got beamed away because the sister was like, you have to leave now. You coming here, this is what's caused this. You need to leave us. And obviously he's reluctant to, because it's like, oh, it's my sister. But then it's like, well, I can't stay here either. They beamed them up. And then you had the thing where they had the actual contact with the Baul, at that point, wasn't it? Yeah.
Basically, they wanted him back, didn't they?
Yeah, you have something that belongs to us.
Yeah, they said if he didn't come back, they were going to kill all of them.
They were going to destroy his village.
Destroy the whole lot. That's when he had the run-in with Pike again, though.
Yes, because he wanted to do something. And he was like, Mr. Saru, you have to stay quiet amongst all this. And then Saru eventually lost his temper. And he said, everything is a lie. You have lied to my people. This whole thing about the great balance. You've done this for your purposes. And then they were like, oh, the Kelpian is there. He belongs to us. And if you don't give us him back, we'll destroy the village. And we'll destroy you too. And they surrounded them in their weird ships. Yeah. And there was loads of them, wasn't there? And they were like, oh, they're powering up their weapons and stuff. And it was like, wow, they'll get torn to pieces because, their ship's tiny compared to all these big things that were surrounding them.
Yeah. As soon as he went, they just dropped the guard. They said pull back, didn't they? It's like he landed on the thing again. So they retreated the weapons, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah,
but then they lost the signal, so they couldn't. They had to, they were talking to him, weren't they? She knew where he was, and then he lost the signal.
Because Burnham,
no, he's trapped on there.
Burnham tried to stop him because she ran to when Saru went to the transporter. She went there, and then he obviously said, wouldn't you do the same if it was your brother and stuff? And then that was what made her decision to let him go. Because she was like, actually, yeah, I understand. I understand where you're coming from when it comes to sort of, your family. But yeah, then they lost the signal and they're like, what are we going to do now?
What was the thing? I want to know what that thing was, that black thing that came out of some lake or something.
That was the Baul.
Wow, weird looking thing.
Very creepy looking alien creature, wasn't it? It was very, and it was hard though. Did you find it hard to understand it sometimes when it was talking?
Yeah, I didn't really know what it said.
Because they put this weird voice filter on it to make it sound really creepy and menacing. The unfortunate side effect was that it sometimes was difficult to actually hear the words it was saying. It was just very so it's like, what?
Do you understand any of it?
Some of it. I mean, it was basically saying to him that, you don't know. What we're doing is for a reason. You're disrupting the balance. He was like, your balance is a lie, and it basically informed him that they were doing it. It was necessary. The Kelpians can't be allowed to advance because they're dangerous. And he said, it said to Saru, you're dangerous. You're a killer. You're a predator. And Saru's like, what are you talking about? And then obviously Saru got really annoyed, and these spike things came out of his neck. And then he shot he fired these darts out of his neck towards the thing, but it was shielded. And then it was like, this is my point. See, your nature is aggressive, and this is why we have to stop your people because they are, they are conquerors, they are murderers. And it's like, what is going on here? Well, it's like, aren't you the creatures that take his people away?
Yeah.
So I was really confused. And obviously, they'd also taken the sister. So the sister sat there, like, what's happening here? What's going on? And then she was shocked to see that Saru had obviously gone past his, whatever it's called, their, like, death cycle thing, and come out the other side of it.
Yeah, and then he decided, he started fiddling with stuff, didn't he? Technology, trying to do something, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah, that's because, obviously he freed himself. Yeah, he lost his temper because all these weird little robot things came in that they were going to kill them. And he somehow got this burst of superhuman strength, and he ripped...
Super Saru, I put.
Yeah, he ripped free of his constraints, and he just, like, ripped these little robot things to pieces, saved his sister, and then, he then sat down, and obviously using his knowledge of technology, he sat and he created, like, a transmitter device, didn't he?
Yes, and then...
So he sent a message to the... I was going to call it the Orville then for a minute. He sent a message to the Discovery, and so he's like, I'm okay. And they're like, oh, okay, good to hear you're fine. And he sort of said, I've had a run-in with the Baul, and we're going to work out how to get out of here. And then the next thing... The
Red Angel appeared.
Well, no, before that, where they were, it turned out they were in the sea. And that's why they couldn't track him, because it was under the sea, and it came out from under the water... Because they said, Captain, we're picking up something on the planet's surface, and this huge building came out of the water, and then it activated all those towers, and it made like a chain, didn't it? It was like, it shot like a laser, and then that attached to the next one, and that attached to the next one, and they were like, what are they doing? It's like, whatever it is, it's like a huge energy surge. They're basically going to wipe out everything. So they're going to kill all the Kelpians on the planet. Oh, wow, was it like, it wasn't all of them, it was at like 63% or something like that. So they were, they're going to destroy them all. And so they were like, well, we need to do something about it. Well, we can't what can we do? We haven't got the technology. We wouldn't be able to shut them all down in enough time. So, what are we going to do here? And then was it before all of this as well that Saru said about... they could do something to help the people or something. They could do what happened to him with the signal. Yes, it was before that. Yeah, it was when they said about they could do the signal that came from the planet. Because that was the other little interesting thing that was thrown in there, was that the living planet creature thing that they found a couple of episodes back that they got all the information from. They were like, we need to see if we can find anything out about the planet to help us here, to understand what's going on a bit more. And so you had like the robot girl and Tilly going through all of the database. And then I love that bit when she was like, we're working on it like that. And she was like, she was talking as if like she was going to come up with something. And then the robot girl did. And she went, she's going to find something. And then they found out that at one point in the history... the Kelpians outnumbered the Baul. There were more of them. And then something happened, and then the Kelpian number started going down, and the Baul number started going up. So there was like, well, what happened in their history? And luckily, again, this thing that was out there in space for thousands of years had knowledge of what happened on their planet, and it looked like that's when they found out, like, the Kelpians were the dominant species, and they used to kill the Baul. And then the Baul somehow managed to, because they were more technologically advanced, they found a way to suppress the Kelpians and take control of the planet, because they were an endangered species. They were going extinct. Yeah. And so then they turned the tables, and then they were like, we'll allow your species to continue, but we're going to almost treat you like animals. We will control your numbers, we will control your population, and we will control your evolution, because we know that once you reach a certain maturity, that's when this change occurs, and that's when you would become a threat to us. So then that was why this whole balance thing was...
Well, that's why they had to kill them, wasn't it? Because once those things fell off, their fear disappeared. But instead, they were making it out that, because those weird things he's travelling in.
Yeah. The
and obviously, the truth was, once they fell off, they were stronger, weren't they?
Yeah.
So they didn't let them get to the point where they fell off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's clever, wasn't it? Yes.
They then decided to use the signal, the like frequency or whatever it was that had come from that planet that had caused the change in Saru. that they were going to do that for the rest of his people and sort of allow them the opportunity to evolve and then work out a way forward. So they sent out this signal, and then I think isn't that when the Bowel reacted in hostility, because they're like, what you're trying to do.
They went hostile, and then
we can't allow this to happen. And then it looked like all hope was lost, and then there was a red burst.
Yep.
And then the angel arrived.
The red angel appeared and saved them, and they were saying, it's humanoid, it's advanced, and I put, it's the Flash, LOL.
Yeah.
It looked like the Flash could be.
Well, because of
it's humanoid, it's advanced.
And it came through a red portal thing.
Yeah, I said, it's the Flash.
I mean, when it appeared in front of the window and they were staring at it, because obviously they confirmed this later on in the episode, what we saw with our own eyes, but did you look at it and go, it's a suit? It's like, this whole thing it's like a spacesuit, and the wings are like part of the spacesuit.
So I said it's Flash.
It's fine. But it's like, it's like the wings are actually part of the spacesuit and things like that. So, because up until now we'd only ever seen it in silhouette, we hadn't seen it in clear detail, had we?
No.
So, yeah, that was it.
Anyone out of the superheroes it could be is Flash, because he's red.
It's not any of the superheroes. It's not a superhero. It's a completely different thing.
Yeah, but he's in the future, isn't he?
Yeah, but that's not it's not science fiction as such. That's superhero. It's different. So yeah, my theory is I think it's Spock.
Yes.
I think Spock's inside that spacesuit, and he's the one that's doing it. But I don't know why, and I don't know for what reasons or whatever. But
now we know that these red bursts are good, not bad, because they appear to.
Are they?
To a point. Well, to a point they are. I mean, that one appeared. They went to the planet. Obviously, then it did save them in the end, because it did draw them to where the problem was, didn't it? Because every other time it's drawn them to the problem. If the worst comes to the worst, and they can't deal with it, it's saved them.
Yeah.
Because it did that with the one, when they went on the asteroid thing.
They
were getting out, but then it all went wrong, didn't it? Because it all started attack, and then because the angel appeared, and somehow it worked out well, didn't it?
Yeah.
So it's because they said it's there to forewarn or something, and if you can't save yourself, it'll save them. If you know what I mean. That's what I think.
But Tyler is suspicious, because Tyler was like, this thing, if it's a time traveller, it could be manipulating things. Because it's like, how do we know that its motives are good? Okay, it did this thing now, but now you've completely upset the status quo of this planet. And it's like, well, it saved them from genocide. And it's like, yeah, but what happens now between the two species? So it's like, is it acting benevolently, or is it acting for some bigger plan? And then they're trying to piece together all these events that have occurred, and like what could be its motivation? What is it trying to achieve with all of the things that are happening?
Yeah, I don't know.
So yeah, Tyler's suspicious of it all. But I wonder whether we'll get a check back in at some point in the future about his planet to say, that they've started trying to sort of resolve the differences between their two peoples or something.
Well, all their things started falling off, didn't they? So I reckon they'll be fine now.
Yeah,
what about their Saru's people?
Yeah, so him and his people and the other aliens, the Baul. It's like, how are they gonna? They're gonna need to learn now to try and coexist with each other.
Yeah.
And hope that the Kelpians don't now suddenly go, well, now we realise the truth and we're able to evolve. We're now going to go on the attack again, and then they become the aggressors and start going after this other alien race. Because the Red Angel basically screwed up all their technology. So all of their advancements are now gone because they, everything got short-circuited and blown up.
Yeah.
All those things started. They were crumbling, weren't they? Those monoliths that were in the villages, they were all like falling to pieces.
Yeah.
I wonder if
maybe we'll go back to them at some point, like you said.
Yeah.
See what something might happen and they have to go back there again. But
so,
for now,
and then
I guess they're not.
The only other thing that happened in that episode was the little bit at the beginning that we got with Hugh.
Oh, yes.
And we had the bit of him trying to come to terms with basically being brought back from the dead.
Well, we said exactly what we said, wasn't it? He'll
Yeah.
have flashbacks and he'll feel weird, and he does, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And he said somebody had a scar that he had a scar that he hasn't got anymore, and that was part of him, and so he doesn't feel like he's him anymore because that was he had it. Well, something he wanted that scar. He was glad he had this scar. Some accident he'd had, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was he doing like mountain climbing or something, and he fell, or like he injured himself, and then the doctor that's like saved him and like healed him, that was then what made him decide he wanted to become a doctor. So he kept that scar as a reminder of that turning point in his
He's been
life.
regenerated, but he feels he's not the same. He's not really, I don't think he's that happy with it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That's the impression I got. Because little things like that define you, don't they? Not define you, they sort of are part of you, and the fact that he's like, hasn't got that anymore, it's like, well, that was me, that was the real me, so who am I really? If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
So, yeah, so that's that. So that's all that. So we'll see what's to come next. I really hope we get Spock or something to do with Spock in the next episode.
Oh, there was a bit of a thing, wasn't there?
What?
I don't know if that's this episode. We know at the end they always go not next on Star Trek, but like coming up on Star Trek.
I don't see those bits because I watch it on Netflix, so they don't show a
so
next time
I think you might see him. I don't know if it's next week though.
Okay.
She sees something.
Like
ooh.
Yeah, they on Netflix they don't actually show the like a preview of the next episode thing. So.
Right, well, we'll have to wait and see. Normally I don't like to see that, but it just happened to be running in the background when I was doing something. I went, oh.
Yeah.
It's like I watched. Just quickly going back to Walking Dead. You said something last week. I nearly forgot that we were talking about the episode, not like when we talk on the phone, and I nearly dropped something in it because when you know the bit where she said she brought the prisoners out with the masks on.
Yeah.
That was the preview they played on Talking Dead.
Oh, okay.
And I nearly said something last week on the podcast. Like, gotta hold my mouth shut. I already know what happens. So again, I have to be careful because otherwise it ruins it for you. Anyway, going on to our next one, which seems to be now. Is this coming to an end?
Well, this confused me because this week's episode of the Orville was part one of a two-parter.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we'll talk about what happened in it as we progress, but all I will say quickly at the beginning, my initial thought after this episode ended was, how did they resolve this? Like, this seems to me as if, like, this is the, like, finale story of this season. Like, you know, that we'll get this week's episode, and then next week's episode would be the last one.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Season. It sounds like it's coming to the end of the season.
Maybe it's the mid-season break. Like, we'll get this one, and then it'll be a mid-season break. But I couldn't reconcile with how things are going to pan out going forward. But we'll get to why I thought that after we sort of talk through and review the episode. But yeah, interestingly enough as well, in my opinion, storyline-wise, quite different. But again, parallels between this show and Discovery in that it was to do with a member of their crew going to a planet that we haven't seen before, and you know that you've got obviously I know there are other aliens on the Discovery, but you've got like the main alien on Discovery, and then on Orville you've got like one of their main non-human characters is also, you know, this storyline about going to this character's
definitely working parallel with the Star Trek people.
Just so much about that. It's just very. It just goes. This is
very bizarre,
isn't it? Yeah.
Certain things things happen, and you go, okay. Right. So basically, the whole
called
episode.
Identity Part 1.
Yeah, the whole episode is around Isaac the robot, which we talked about last week.
Mm-hmm.
I think. The one that was having the relationship with the doctor on board the Orville. So it's basically all about him. So it started off with he's chilling with the kids, playing some weird space game, which is a bit like a plunk, wasn't it?
It was
like a space version.
Well, yeah, I thought Jenga because it was like a tower thing, wasn't it? It's
Oh
like,
yeah, Jenga. I forgot about that game.
yeah,
I couldn't think what it was. It's quite funny because obviously Claire didn't know the boys knew about her seeing Isaac,
yeah,
and she goes, "Boys, I need to tell you something," and I go, "Yeah, we know. We're cool about it."
yeah.
It's like, "Yay, it's gonna be our new dad," and then he just collapsed. He just fell on the floor, and it's like obviously because his face, he hasn't got a face. It's just like a flat.
Well,
How do you say
he's
it?
got lights, hasn't he? Like it's like a helmet sort of thing,
But
but
the
it's
lights
got
just appear
two
through the
lights.
helmet, don't they?
Yeah.
So everything went out, and he just collapsed.
Mhm.
So obviously then they realised, well, they don't know how. They haven't got a clue because he's not one of theirs.
Yeah.
So they had to get permission to take him to Kalon. That's what he
Yeah.
was from Kalon, isn't he?
Mhm.
To get him fixed.
Yeah.
So they got the permission, so they headed off towards wherever he lived. That was a weird place, wasn't it?
What, their planet?
Yeah.
It's
They got
not
near
quite.
them, didn't they? And,
It's not quite what I expected. I mean, I was
no.
expecting when because it was quite funny because you had obviously they set off and they're like, oh, it's outside of Union space, so you're not gonna, if anything happens out there, you won't be protected, and
No.
it's a bit of a way out, it's a bit far to travel to, and then they got there and they're like,
Before
oh,
they got actually
we're
onto the
really
planet,
far from home. We're so far from home, and I was like, it didn't seem like you took very long to get there, but also the
no.
planet looked just like a kind of Earth-like planet. I was expecting it to be almost metallic because they're robot people.
Yeah.
I was expecting the planet to look sort of robot-ified, from
Yeah.
like in Transformers. Transformers' home planet, they're all robots, and their home planet looks like it's made of metal. I was expecting this to be sort of looking like you could tell just from from space that it's like, well, they're clearly not an organic life form that lives here, but it was only when they actually went down onto the planet that it became more futuristic, and there was lots of just big buildings and cityscapes and things like that. But yeah, from the outset I was a bit like, oh, I was expecting it to look different to this.
Yeah. That bit where before they actually were allowed to come into the area to like dock, and they
Yeah.
scanned the whole ship. It was like saw it
Mm.
go across the wall. Go, ooh. They're all sort of following the light, like, ooh,
Yeah.
this is weird. They're scanning all of us.
Mhm.
But yeah, so they docked there, and obviously they brought him in, and they found out. They told him, oh, his mission is complete. He won't be coming back, or whatever. Now he's done what he was sent there to do. That's what happens. Now we'll just like basically break him up and make him into a new one.
Yeah, because they thought he was broken, didn't they? And then they were like, no, he doesn't need to be fixed. We turned him off, basically. He's deactivated.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, he's going to be, disassembled, and then he'll be reintegrated in with the rest of us.
Yeah. But they were saying, please, can't you just try and, we don't want to lose him. And he said, well, so they went off, took him off, didn't they, at the back? And in the meantime, Ed and Kelly were trying, is it Kelly?
Yeah.
Trying to convince the Kalons to join the Union.
Yeah, because that had been the point all along. The reason that Isaac had joined the Orville was that he was supposed. Well, this is anyway. At the time, he was there as an emissary to gain information about the Union, about the different species, relay the information back to his superiors, so they could then make a decision on whether or not they wanted to join the Union. So they're hoping, well, now that, this has all happened, and obviously this is the first time we're meeting, you've allowed us to come to your planet, so we're hoping that you will come to the conclusion that it will be beneficial to join our planetary union. So yeah, they were sort of trying to push that through while all of this was going on with Isaac.
With all those weird robotic things, like where he does on the ship. There's walls with all the information where they're just sort of... There were loads of them people, weren't they? All over the place.
Yeah.
Obviously, however they get the information or put the information in. But anyway, they came back and they said that they said they'd abused him. And he said, what do you mean we've abused him? And they said, there was a time where and they went, oh, you mean Mr. Potato Head? Do
you remember that episode?
Yeah, that was right, the first season, wasn't it?
Yeah, when they were trying to teach him about humour and they stuck all the stuff onto him, yeah.
And they've done other things across time to him. It's like, oh dear, like when we're in trouble for this. They find out. Did he say something like we're fired? We'll be fired.
Yeah, like once it gets back to their bosses.
It gets back to you, to one of their staff.
Yeah.
So they said, and he said he didn't want to come back. his job was done now, blah, 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 blah. So they said, well, you need to come and say goodbye to everyone, the kids and that before you go. So they got him to come back on the ship, and they did a surprise party for him.
Oh, that bit was so funny. When
Why
she
was
was
that weird ginger guy singing?
but wasn't he good? He was a good singer, though.
It was good, but it was really weird.
It was very weird. And he had the weird, like, four-eyed alien thing playing the piano and stuff.
Yeah. And like something to eat, like he can't eat.
Yeah. Did you not love the funny little moment? So you had the funny bit with the party and with Malloy singing, but then you had the bit with the cake and Bortus.
Oh, yeah, he wanted a corner piece.
I would like an end bit with the flour, please. It's like, do it quickly before anybody comes, and then obviously the
other one grabbed him one off the table and said, "Go, have some cake."
John, John. I can't remember what his surname is, but yeah, the black guy, John. He comes over and he's like, "Hey, boss, have some of this cake. It's really good." And he's like, "Oh, thank you." And it's like, I hate parties. This party. Oh, that was so funny.
But obviously, the boys obviously were really sad that he was going. The little boy gave him a picture of all of them.
That was so sweet.
Meanwhile, in the what's the bit? The bridge.
Mm-hmm.
While this was all going on, the technical people were scouring the planet.
Yeah.
And they found these weird things. All I can say is weird things. I think these were there's lots of round things.
Yes, they said spherical objects are cropping up. We've been doing a sweep of the planet, and like over in the eastern quarter of the planet or something? I can't remember where it was.
There's tons of these things.
They weren't there before, but there's more and more of them appearing, like over the like time that we've been scanning. They just keep cropping up, and he's like, well, just keep it discreet and keep an eye on what they're doing, but let me know, sort of thing.
Yeah. So when we went back into the party bit, anyway, the little boy gave him the picture, and then he left the party and just looked at the picture and just dropped it.
I know.
And just walked off. I thought, why wouldn't you keep it?
I suppose it was really pushing the point that he's not like us, he's not a human. He doesn't have feelings, he doesn't have anything. He's controlled by, it's all logic and computer code and things like that. It's like there is no emotional attachment. And it's like, that's why she was really annoyed as well, because she was like, oh, we brought, part of this family and this, and he's like, I'm sorry, I apologize that you're distressed, but it was always about observation. I was, I spent time with the children, not because I was attached to them in an emotional way. Yeah. And so it was the same with the picture. But I was just like, oh, I can't believe he... I thought that would have been... At the time, I thought that might be the one thing... Obviously, before, we eventually got to see where this episode was going, my thoughts at that moment in time was, he's going to leave with the picture, they're going to leave, and then he's going to be looking at that picture and he's going to realise that he's somehow, like, evolved, that he's, like... He's gone beyond that initial logical programming, and he's going to be looking at that picture the little boy did and realising, oh, I missed them, I want to be back with them, which will then maybe lead them to getting called back to the planet or something. That's what I thought at the time. Yeah. That was where I thought it was going. This episode is
exactly what I said last week. I was saying to the listeners that this can be so light-hearted, and it can go from light-hearted so quickly into something serious.
Yeah.
Because obviously the next thing was... The little boy went looking for him to give him the picture, and obviously he was hiding, and he found this. It was like a underground tunnel. He went down into something, didn't he, to hide?
Yeah, to hide. Yeah.
So he went down into the bottom of this thing, and he discovered, oh my days, what he found in there. Meanwhile, the other guys realised the little boy had gone missing and presumed he was on the planet. They came off to the Orville, didn't they, as well?
Yeah.
Looking for him. And they found all the skulls and bones. There's millions, hundreds of them.
Yep.
And they're human.
Yeah. They're like, these are biological. These are organic creatures. They're not obviously anything to do with the Kalon. So it was like, wow, why have they got all these underground repositories? And they were scanning. They were like, we're finding them all over the planet. So there's all these like graveyards.
Have they gone all over the place and killed people?
Well, then I don't know what you thought at the time, but after I got over the initial shock of this is a really gruesome discovery, I was then I thought, okay, so I was then using my logical brain, and I was thinking, right, okay, so they're robot creatures. Now, regardless of whether or not, there's lots of things in space we don't understand and things like that. I thought, well, if they're robots, it stands to sense that somebody had to have built at least the first one. One of them would have had to have been built by something living, would have had to have built one of these robots to start with, which then led to the rest of them. So my thought process was, maybe this is, sometimes in programs they give us something that appears initially shocking, and we jump to a conclusion just like the main characters do, and then it turns out, no, it's the wrong conclusion. And that's what I thought was happening here. I thought, oh, we're going to find out that was what they were originally, that the Kalon were organic beings, and then they evolved from that, and they put their minds into robot bodies or something.
Didn't they say that? They said that, didn't they?
No, they didn't. No, what they actually said when they were confronted with this, they explained that the bodies were those of their creators, and that once they'd been created, they realized that they were inferior, so they killed them all.
Yeah.
So it wasn't it wasn't an evolution. They weren't evolving from human being, or well, not human. We don't know what they actually look like, but biological beings and evolving into robot beings. No, the biological beings created the robots. The robots then, in a very sort of Terminator way, grew beyond their organic masters, and they turned on them and wiped them all out, and just you're inferior to us, so they killed them all, and they just completely they took part in planetary genocide and killed off every living creature on their planet.
So obviously, wherever that proceeded in that episode, then they decided they were going to take over the Orville.
Yeah, because they made a determination, didn't they? They then revealed the real reason that Isaac was on board the Orville was so that they could determine whether humans and other beings within the planetary union, whether they were worthy or not to be allowed to exist.
Yes.
And it was they were making the same judgment call that they made on their home planet, but across space. And they said, our planet is getting too small for us, we're growing at an exponential rate, that we're running out of resources, so we need to expand. And in order to expand, we need to take over planets. So yeah, then you said they then decided that they were going to take over the Orville.
And they're going to Earth.
And then we found out what those orbs were.
Yes.
The big orb things that they had detected on the planet turned out to be huge ships that they were building.
Oh yes.
And it was like an invasion.
Yes, they all took off as well, didn't they?
Yeah. And then
they all went with. They were all going with.
They corralled.
They were all heading to Earth.
They corralled all of the humans into the launch bay areas. So they herded them all into where the shuttles are and stuff, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then they took all the places on the ship. And then they plotted a course for Earth, and then obviously they took off into space, and then you got this whole fleet of these big circular ships following them. I wonder as well, looking at the design of them, I was looking at them and going, I wonder if the central bit, because they're almost if you imagine, for those of you that are just listening to this and maybe you haven't seen it visually, but it was almost like a wheel, and you had almost like spokes coming in that attached to something circular in the very middle. And that, to me, I was I reckon that's a weapon. I reckon that bit in the centre is like a laser or something.
Yeah.
So, that's what I thought looking at them, the design. I thought the outside is the ship, the outside circular bit, and then you've got the middle section. I reckon that's like a big laser weapon or something. But yeah, so they're going to invade the universe. They're going out now into space to destroy everything. So it took
that's going to be interesting.
A very, very dark turn.
Yeah. Like I say, after being so light-hearted up to now, and all this leading up to, obviously even all the things with Isaac as well, there's obviously been leading up to this episode where his own is going to do this.
And he's going along with it.
Yeah.
He's just this is, But now this is I'm wondering. Okay, so I have I have speculation. Now my speculation is: do you truly think that Isaac has turned on them, or do you think this is a ploy? Do you think that, mate? Because like I'm wondering whether the little boy's going to be right. Because the little boy got annoyed. There was a bit when, before he left the ship, the little boy ran away, and Claire went after him, and she found him in the holodeck simulator place, and he was in a tree with the picture.
That's right.
And he said that he's more like, he feels emotions and that more than you think. And she was like, Isaac's not like us. He doesn't. And she's like, no, that's not true. Why did he spend so much time playing games with us? Why did he come to the dinner table with us when he didn't have to? There's times that, if you look at it from a logical perspective, it's like, well, he didn't need to come and sit with us at meal times because he'd already done observations for that kind of thing. He did that because he wanted to be with us, because he does care about us. And I'm going to prove that.
Yes.
So I wonder whether the little boy's going to prove right. And if Isaac has developed emotions in some way and does care about them, and maybe he's pulling a fast one on his own people. Maybe it's like...
Well, maybe it isn't at the moment, but when he realises the consequences, his humanity side that he's learned from the people will kick in in order for him to rebel and to stop it. I think at the moment he really is just going along with it because he doesn't know any better. But then when he'll think of the consequences, I think that's when he'll, like I say, even though he said, I have none of these feelings because I'm a robot.
Yeah.
But what he has learned is sort of stuck with him, and then he'll intervene, I think. Hopefully.
So is that what you...
Otherwise we'll lose Isaac.
Because I think that my thought was, what if it turns out that, like, say there's, like, maybe there'll be a moment in the next part where, like, he's ordered to take them away somewhere or something, and they're annoyed at him, maybe Ed is sort of saying, I can't believe, we always defended you and we cared about you and this is how you treat us and stuff, and then maybe he turns around and says that he's actually on their side, and he's like, I couldn't reveal this before, Captain, because if I'd revealed this before we left the planet, they would have killed you instantly, so the only way to keep you alive and ensure that we could come up with the plan was for me to pretend that I was on side with them.
Well, don't write the script.
Like he's a sleeper, agent or something.
Well, if that works out to be the fact, I go,
then
I ruined it now, Tom, because you wrote it from last.
It then proves that I'm good at predicting stuff. It shows my perception. That's the thing. We've done, this isn't like, I mean, you make it sound as if we haven't had these conversations before. Where
I know, it's just the way you said it. It sounded so like it could be said exactly like that. That's what I meant. You could have said what you'd said earlier, saying, well, I think he is actually going to help them, or I think he's not going along with it. You didn't have to originally read the script out.
That's how I see it.
It's like having a spoiler alert.
I see it playing out that way. That's like in my mind, that's how I see that scene sort of playing out.
We will see next week if we can say you were right.
Yeah.
Or I was right.
Yeah.
That he did go along with it until the last minute, and then he thought he'd change his mind.
Either way, though, whichever way...
Have a vote on it, listeners. See who you think...
Yes, do you think I'm right, or do you think Mum's right?
One evening to realise, because it'll be on again tonight.
What I will say is, though, my thing that we said at the beginning of this, before we got into the review, is where do they go from here? Because regardless of the outcome of this two-part storyline, where do they go from here with, like, Isaac and his people?
Yeah.
Like, how could... surely they would not want to accept them now into the Union after... Even if they come to their senses and go, oh, we were wrong. We've learned the error of our ways, and they do a whole sort of a message thing where they sort of realise that, it's like, it still doesn't change the fact that you committed genocide. You may not have ended up attacking the rest of the galaxy in the end, but you killed millions of people on your home planet.
Yeah.
How do they square that circle? How do they say, we're going to accept you into our union of peace and discovery and exploration, knowing that this race wiped out a whole bunch of living creatures?
It'll be interesting, won't it? I'm looking forward to seeing that episode to see how they do.
Yeah, and like, what does it mean for Isaac? It's like, if I'm wrong in my theory, and Isaac isn't really playing his own people and stuff, and he is really on side with them. What does that mean for him as well in terms of him staying on the Discovery? It's like the Orville. The only way I can. That's why I think that it is going to be revealed that either like you said, he's going to come to his senses, or as I said, he's going to be working undercover. Because otherwise, it's like, how does he remain a member of their crew afterwards?
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see then, won't we?
It really keeps it. It's sort of got me pondering on. But that's good.
That's so. It was like to be continued. I went, oh my days, what's going to happen?
That's why it's such a great show, though, because it does have you. That's the sign of a good program. If you come away from that program with 101 theories, and also with these feelings of like, I want to see what happens next, or how will this work out going forward, or whatever. If it's got you thinking about the show, it means they're doing a good job with what they're presenting to you.
I don't know how people just watch programs, go, I watch program, that's it, and they go away.
Yeah.
But on another program, if you don't discuss it, I mean, I'm sure all these people that write these things, the fact that they know people are talking about it is a good sign, because they've done their job right.
Mm-hmm.
It's like anything, a book or anything, you know what I mean? If a song, anything. If you talk about it, you're talking about it for a reason, because it's made an impact on you at some point.
Yeah.
That's why it's good to like discuss these programs, because they're writing so cleverly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're not just. I mean, I watch programs and I go, I can't believe these people are learning a script, or that they're doing takes of these scenes, because everything runs so fluidly nowadays.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe that people look like, especially when they have children and things. It's like they're so amazing. It's just you almost just feel like you're watching real life every time.
Mm.
But it's not a scripted show. Do you get what I'm trying to say to a point?
Yeah.
Apart from some of the crazy stuff they put in the shows, it's just like another extension of life, isn't it? Really. So, like I say, it is exciting when you can go right, or you can hopefully predict or want something to happen that you think would happen, and then when it doesn't, you go, "Oh my days, didn't expect that."
Yeah.
Like woo. So, yeah. Again, like I said, the Orville can go from really cheesy to really serious throughout a whole season, can't it?
Yeah.
So at the moment, it's looking really dire. So we'd have to just wait and see what happens this week.
But this goes to show as well
how it pans out.
Obviously, people at home, this goes to show as well how these kind of programs can bring out passionate emotions. Because obviously, you will have heard here that although we're not arguing with each other as such, we are obviously our opinions. We're having sort of a slight difference of opinion in what we're saying here, and that's just what these sort of things. That's again sign of a good story. Is that if it brings out this thing where you want to debate and you want to discuss and you want to sort of say, no, I disagree with you here because I think this thing or whatever. It's, if something makes you passionate enough that you want to really talk about it in that way, they're doing a really good job with what they're creating.
Indeed.
Yes.
Test spot. Oh no, Tilk.
Yes,
sorry,
Tilk. Yes, Stargate.
Tilk.
Yes.
Tilk on Stargate. I think that's Roundup then.
Yeah, that's us done for this week. Yeah, that's everything.
Just as well, because I'm not 100%, so at least next week when we've got a few more things to talk about, hopefully. Mm-hmm. We've got more next week. Are they back next week?
Yeah. Next week we've got all of the Arrowverse shows return, brilliant. So we will have all of them to discuss.
So at least my voice and chest and that'll be cleared up. So at least that's good.
Yeah.
And ironically, the week we have less to talk about, we seem to have had a flawless podcast.
It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, there's been no break at all here.
It's like unbelievable.
Very weird.
Powers of me, what's going on? But yeah, I enjoyed talking about what we did talk about, and we'll see what happens on all three of those this week.
Definitely. Definitely. And like I said, when you get a minute, have a look at the Umbrella Academy, and that goes for you people.
I will do.
You people at home too. Check out the Umbrella Academy. I highly recommend it. It's very, very good. And yeah, like I said, the soundtrack is great. I mean, I love it when you get a program that not only is the program really good, but it has a really good soundtrack as well. And you just go, wow, the soundtrack of this program's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you know what I'm like. I'll just get it for a ringtone.
Oh no, I don't mean the theme tune for the show. I mean the soundtrack used throughout the show, like during scenes. The music they're using, and you specifically some of the stuff. Like I said, that Adamant, and I won't tell you the others. I'll let you find those
tell me anything
yourself. But when you hear some of the songs, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. So yeah, I think it's really good, and I mean, I like it as well. I went into it straight away from like, I reckon this will be cool because again, it's another thing that's based on a comic book, and it's also made, it was created by Gerard Way, who is the frontman for My Chemical Romance, which is a band that I really, really like. So I was like, yeah, I reckon this is going to be cool, and it is cool.
Well, that's my thing to watch later on before I go to work. Then
Yes.
I'll give it a go.
Right, okay, well, that will do. So thank you once again, everybody, for tuning in, and share this with your friends. Tell everybody about our podcast. Come back and enjoy this madness with us every single week. We endeavour to get these episodes out to you on a weekly basis. Please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Please leave us comments below, because we really love to know what you think about what we're talking about, and if you've got any things to throw in, because then we can add that in. We can talk about it and say, oh, well, Joe Blogs said this thing, and it might be something that we didn't even think about. So if you do that, that'd be great as well. And also, again, the whole ideas for the name of the podcast thing. If you've got any better ideas for what we could rename this, or if you're happy with just having it called Talking TV with my mum, then let us know. And check out the links in the description box for other ways that you can help grow the channel. And as we mentioned last week, donate on Patreon. Donate, and then one day Mum can give up her job and become a full-time podcaster.
One day.
Yes, one day. So until the next time, thank you very much for joining us. You take care now, guys. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye. 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 Bye.